that we were running two processes at the same time, but these were processes that are very interrelated. We were really collecting verified sale registers from the provinces because we are going to use these sale registers as our voters' roll. So it's very important once you want to use sale registers as a voters' roll, because they have to be accurate, they have to be verified, that the people that are written there with their names appearing there, they exist in reality, and that all their details are correct. So we had this process of collecting the sale registered from all provinces, which were supposed to be at head office on the same day. And I'm happy to report that we have received the registers from all the provinces. And obviously we have now started the work to sort them out so that they can be used by those people who are going to administer the elections. So that was one process taking place. But we also had another process whereby, after issuing the rules and regulations and inviting those interested party members to apply and submit their CVs to their respective provinces, that exercise was done. But what was of interest was really the response. You see, in the past, we used to require members to submit their CVs to their admin centers. And once the admin centers collect these, they will then take them to the provinces. A process that would take probably 3 days or 4. This time around, our instruction was that CVs must be submitted to the provinces. I'm not so sure how they organize the transport, but by Saturday, all provinces were awash with people wanting to lodge their CVs. And by after midday, we were getting reports that we have received all the CVs. Of course, there's the 1 or 2 which comes later, but the response was overwhelming. And then, of course, the following Sunday, the provincial coordinating committees reconstituted themselves to provincial elections directorates, who then have to go through all the submissions, and then they would make comments on those who were recommended and those not recommended. Those who were not recommended were those applications where they felt they didn't meet the criteria in terms of the rules and regulations, maybe in terms of age restrictions or the number of years in a particular structure. So that's what they did, and they finished in record time, although there were 1 or 2 provinces which had to finish the following morning. But all the same, there was overwhelming response across all provinces. And these have now been collected and lodged here at head office. Now, obviously, once that happens, we need to carry out a security vetting. So our security department has been working 24 hours a day to ensure that they go through all these CVs and pick up those that they think won't qualify in terms of this criteria for security. And this work has just been completed. I'm getting the report now that they finished. They are just making sure that they do the final check, the final inspection, to make sure that the work that they've done meets the quality that has been set. Now, there was a committee also which was looking at the complaints to make sure that we don't move forward before we address the complaints. This ad hoc committee met and went through all the complaints and also made their own recommendations on the various complaints that were brought to their attention. What will now happen is that the National Elections Directorate, which only meets when all these submissions have been made, submissions from the provinces, submissions from the security checks, and also comments from the committee looking into the complaints. And once all that information is there, now the National Elections Directorate can now meet to look at all these processes and then make its recommendations. It doesn't have the final say in terms of who should stand or who shouldn't. They make recommendations. And once they carry out that exercise, make their recommendations, these are then the recommendations that are then considered by the Politburo. And the Politburo has a final say. Once the Politburo considers these submissions and approves the recommendations, it means now it's game on, because now these candidates can now go and stand and represent the party. So all that work has now been done, and in an hour's time, the National Elections Directorate will meet to go through all these submissions. They will meet until they finish the job, even if it means tomorrow at midday, but let it be. They will meet and follow through and finish the work. Once they get in, they just don't come out. They just go in and carry out the work and make their recommendations, which then all that week will then be prepared for consideration for the Politburo. We had anticipated that by Saturday we would have elections. But as I said, because of the overwhelming response, it was not possible to get to that target, because we need to make sure that we go through these processes, the vetting processes, the meeting of the National Elections Directorate, which has to do a thorough job, and also to prepare all these submissions to be ready to be considered by the Politburo. And because of the overwhelming response, you see, you find that in some areas, you find that you had more like 10 candidates for one position. Others 5, 6, 7, 10, and therefore you need to do a thorough work to make sure that at the end of the day, the decisions are arrived as a result of proper preparations to make sure that we get the right candidate at the end of the day. So because of all the work that has been done to be done, and because of the overwhelming response, it was found necessary that once this work is finished, and we believe Saturday and Sunday, everything should be ready. And because of that, His Excellency, the President, has now agreed that we meet as a Politburo on Monday, this coming Monday. And this is a Politburo specifically to consider all the submissions that have been put forward and all the work that has been carried out, so that they can then finalize on the list of candidates. And once that is done, then we have to notify the candidates, those who have to stand and represent the party. And in the meantime, we are ready in terms of the logistics. The ballot boxes are there. The ballot papers are there ready, and the people that are going to man the polling stations have been selected, and some training is ongoing to make sure that they know what they have to be done. So everything is all systems go. We just have to get the final say of the Politburo on Monday, and once that is done, we will then carry on. I cannot say whether the elections are on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, but elections will be held after the Politburo meets. But which day, I can't tell. All right. So we are looking forward. We're excited because all preparations have been done, and we believe it will be very very exciting elections. And as I said, I was quite surprised because of the overwhelming response. You find it's across. Normally you have women have always participated. They've always been active, but this time around, women are not just vying for the women's quota. They are also contesting the men in those various constituencies, which are also very interesting. So you find there were also young people very much interested, contesting with the men and also contesting for the youth quota, which is a recent development. The same goes for the local authority. Obviously, because on the senatorial you don't have much of that activity because of the requirements. It's more of very senior people, people who have been in the central committee, and you don't find a lot of these activities. And in some cases, you find candidates who have come forward for senators don't have much of contestations. But it's more on the local authority, House of Assembly, women's quota, youth quota, that you find there's quite a lot of interest. But this is good. And in the past, we used to say to our candidates, please don't campaign before the approval from cabinet. But because candidates were saying, look, the date is Saturday, we can't wait for the announcement. They are already campaigning. They've always been on the ground anyway. And there's a lot of activities, and there's a lot of running around, and people, which is good for the party. It's good mobilization because it means the party is alive, the party is active, and that the members of the party are interested to take part and be considered for position, because every party member has a right to come in and say, look, I want to be considered for this very position. And I think the Politburo this time had to relook at some of the regulations and rules to say, look, let's remove those aspects or clauses that tend to close out people. Let's remove so that we open up, and all those who want, let them come in, and the people will decide whom they want. And that's democracy at its best. So I think that has been the process so far. So even when the National Election Directorate meets, they are not meeting to say why so and so is there. They are meeting to see those people whom they say not recommended, to say, should they not be really be considered? So it's to make sure that those people where the provincial election directorate had said so and so probably not suitable, then the National Election Directorate want to make sure whether it's really authentic, whether it is right to do so that we open up, so that we have people who want to take part really to come in, so that the people on the ground are the people to decide whom they want to represent them. And that's, I think, what we are excited about, the developments in the party, because everyone who wants to participate is allowed to come and participate, as long as you meet those requirements which everyone is agreeable to. Okay, so thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again once we know who is standing in which constituency, and when we announce the results as time moves on. Thanks very much. There might be some of you who have got questions. Please feel free to ask.
Anyone with questions? Please state the media that you are representing and your question. Interestingly, Honorable, even journalists are also contesting. I've seen the posters of the likes of Tendai Mnengwa and Bruce for 2028.
Correct.
Right, questions time. Yes, first question.
My name is Robert from Conical Tower Production. Has there been any cases where a single candidate has submitted their CV for a particular post, and do we have automatic entries in those cases? Which ones are they?
I would know offhand. They are particularly in senatorial positions. where people would want to be considered for senatorial positions, and there's been only one candidate. But in most cases, it's probably two or one, but I wouldn't tell offhand which positions and in which province. But there are cases where you have a single candidate in a position, but mainly in senatorial positions. In mostly of your House of Assembly and local authorities, there are more than one. And as I said, in some cases, there are 10 people to a position, 7 people to a position, and all joking for one position.
The other one.
Okay, my name is Dalit Yangas.
Speak out loud.
Okay, I would like to get a comment regarding the allegations that have been leveled against some members that they are thwarting opposition preferring to go into the primary elections uncontested, and also there have been also allegations leveled against some of the Mbingas that they are buying for that Bakutenga votes kuti bapinde mu primary.
What we have said is that whoever feels that he or she has been treated unfairly or has been blocked from participating, they should lodge their complaints in writing. You recall I was telling you about a committee that has been working flat out to look at complaints. It's because whenever you have a competition, whenever there is a race like this, you also have people who come out in the end to say they've been treated unfairly. And as a party, we would want to listen to those complaints and attend to those complaints. And where we have found that those complaints were genuine, that someone probably has been blocked or some CV has been refused, we have taken those CVs on board so that these CVs are going to be considered like any other CV. So we are very free, open for those complaints to come either individually or collectively. And it's entirely upon those who have been unfairly treated to come forward. But we have also have cases where people come with a complaint that has nothing to do with him or her, and say, so and so has been. We don't actually want to entertain third-party complaints. We want people who come and say, look, I have been treated unfairly. This is what has happened, and in writing, so that we can investigate and then we can adjudicate properly. Thank you.
We are the ruling party. We are the party with a history, and we are also the party with a future. And our affairs here have got an impact on the greatest number of the population of Zimbabwe. This is an election year. We are very much focused as a party on the preparations to the elections. And our leader is going full scale to make sure that the message of the party is communicated everywhere to everyone, and as much as possible galvanize the Zimbabwean population to go to the fort. There are a number of initiatives which the president has been pushing through. The first one is for a peaceful election, non-violent election. It's a message which he is ceaselessly preaching whenever he gets a chance, whether it be on press conferences, whether it be on rallies, even when it be on diplomatic encounters. Just yesterday he was with the representative of the EU, and he was loud and clear in his call for a peaceful, non-violent, democratic election. This is the message of our president. It is also the message of our party. We are also very grateful for ZEC and the resources which it has got to make sure that they do mop up the newly registered Zimbabweans. You all know that there was a moratorium on some of the legal niceties which have been a hindrance to include Zimbabweans on the national registration list. The president offered a moratorium on payment for the acquisition of birth certificates and the other processes which may lead to the person being registered as a citizen of Zimbabwe, but also to get the national identity registration. This process has gone well, gone on very well, and there has been a huge increase, marginal increase in the number of citizens of Zimbabwe who have taken advantage of this moratorium. A loud and clear message from the president that he wants Zimbabweans not only to enjoy democracy, but also to be seen to be practicing democracy. Because democracy ultimately starts with an X on a vote. And that's what the president has been pushing for. And the former commercial workers of Zimbabwe, those with a Malawi, Mozambique, and also Zambian background from the colonial era, they have now this boom in terms of national inclusivity, stemming from our decision in 1980 that we will not treat fellow Africans who were already part of the Zimbabwean community as aliens. We don't have the phenomena of xenophobia because all of them were made into Zimbabweans. And now we are making sure that they do vote, they participate in the national economy. As you heard yesterday at the ceremony where the ministers were being recommended and given awards, what cannot be measured cannot be quantified. We need to make sure that there is measurement. Every goal must have a measurement stick. And statistics are the starting point of all measurement, particularly the statistics of the population. So this is the element of our president in terms of the promotion of democracy and to be seen to be practicing that democracy. He went further. The president was in Bulawayo. He is now a frequent visitor to the mother city, to Matabeleland provinces, where a lot of things are happening. You know, big projects are unfolding in Matabeleland, the big dams like Mchabes, but more than that, huge investments in the energy sector. As you all know, that Wange is the energy, it is the energy box of Zimbabwe with its coal fields, high quality coal. So new power stations are about to be commissioned, Wange 7 and 8. Old ones are being renovated, but there are also signs that very soon the private sector will take even more investment into Matabeleland North, into Wange, on a bigger scale than had been experienced up to now. I'm told that one of the big chrome smelting companies, which is in Gweru, and which is also in the health sector, has moved to Wange to build a big power station, thermal powered power station. We do not shy away from using coal as an energy. We are net unpolluters. COP27 should be more for those who are polluting than for those who have not started polluting. And energy for us is very important. We can buy our green energy once we are rich. We can't buy our green energy when we are a poor country. So America has got the luxury of buying green energy because they are now rich. Europe has got the luxury of buying green energy because they are now rich. Although Europe and America, they don't mind a war which then forces them to go into fossil fuels, like in Ukraine, which even causes more pollution. But we have not been a polluter historically. So, but we need to be modern. We need our people to be prosperous. So we will not shy away, as our president has indicated, from using coal to drive our industrialization strategy. Once we are rich, we can then afford to buy green energy and be part of the corporate green energy citizens of the world. But otherwise, for the moment being, our footprint is almost non-existent in terms of pollution. So those who may not want us to, join COP27, they may bring their carbon credits here. Then we say to them, we can compensate because they are the big polluters. So this is about the president and his development agenda. We are told that he is at very advanced stage in fulfilling a promise which he made that urban dwellers shall be given title deeds so that they can claim their houses which they built and developed themselves, they can claim them as assets which are within the banking system. This is going to be a big bang, financial inclusive move by the president. And I don't want to say more about it. I don't want to take thunder out of it, but it's an excitement bonanza. It's a big gift to the urban electorate that title deeds are now about to be unfolded on a large scale to several towns and cities, so that urban people can feel that at last they own property in the urban areas, what they've always been dwelling on as their house, and it is not on the National Asset Register. Now it's going to be included. This is a promise which he made that he will deliver before the elections. We are told that we are on the verge of something very big. It's not only big from our party point of view, but it is also it's a paradigm shift in the asset register of Zimbabwe. It will shrink the asset to debt ratio of the country. Right now, our debt looks very big because we've got a lot of assets which are not on the book. Now these assets are going to be put on the book, and they can be taken to the financial system, to the banks, and they can be securitized, and people can make renovations. They can use the money to buy new houses. They can use the money to invest in their rural plots, where they own land as former communal landowners. They can build solar power stations with boreholes and drip lines in rural areas using the security of their homes, which has been unaccounted for, which has been idle. So this is a very good thing, and something big is about to happen. We are also on party issues. I'm just coming from our National Elections Directorate. They should be through. Our political commissar will be coming with a probably press conference to you. We are almost finalizing the vetting and approval of the voters for the upcoming primary elections. The enthusiasm which we have seen on the ground clearly point to a direction that these are the very important elections. The people, the membership of ZANU-PF is taking them so ardently and so enthusiastically and so energetically, because they are keen to feel to be the best possible candidates to emerge out of the selection so that they can challenge the other party. So everybody is keen to wear his gloves for the battlefield. I mean, for the showdown with the Triple C. This is the electoral showdown with these electoral gloves. I'm not talking about the other gloves which our president is averse to. So a lot of party enthusiasm, a lot of activity which has been going on. It's interesting for those who are saying that there are secret cows. There are no secret cows. A lot of my colleagues who are Politburo members, they are actually in the field right now campaigning. They couldn't even come for the National Elections Directorate because they are busy trying to make sure that the person who gives them a political life, who is the voter, takes ascendance over meetings in Harare. So if you can see Politburo members of ZANU-PF abandoning offices to go and campaign on the ground, it's an indication that democracy is alive and well in ZANU-PF. And generally, and this is a word from the president, we favor inclusiveness rather than exclusionary vetting. There must be a very compelling reason for you not to be included. We are biased towards inclusiveness because we believe that if we include everybody, and the voting is done, and it's done that people who have been participating see how they are losing, it will make it easy for the party to come together as a united team in the aftermath of the primary elections. We don't want acrimony and recriminations after the primary elections. So the only way to do it, widen the candidate selection list and deepen the democracy. You will also be happy that our recent cell drive, the registers are complete. They've been sent back to the various party districts, which will also coincide with the polling booth locations of ZEC. So the voting register is a mimic of the national register by ZEC. We are not doing something out of our head. So we are using our primary elections as a yardstick of the support which the party will have in the elections. Yeah. All these processes point to a party which is transparent, which is open. You saw our central commitment, you see, endorsing our president. You saw our Politburo. We had a long Politburo last week, the last time I saw you. All these processes are being done in a transparent manner, in the full glare of the public, not only of Zimbabwe, of the world. This is not some leader of Triple C with his associates and some young people sitting in a secret society divining who should be candidates for their party and then foisting those candidates on the electorate of the country without any criteria which nobody has ever says as to how they were chosen. Then you expect the people to vote for you. No, we don't work like that in ZANU-PF. We are putting our work right in the full public glare of both the press, of the local community, of the voter, and of the international community. That is singularly lacking in the other part. So it means maybe they are not there on the ground because we are not seeing them on the ground. So if you can't be seen on the ground and you claim you can only be seen at night, people don't vote at night, they vote during the day. So, you know, if the result comes out and the Triple C has got tears on their eyes, don't be surprised. You can see the process which we are doing to make sure that our victory is vindicated and it won't be open to any question. We have another issue which we want to highlight. We value our relations with everybody in the world. That's why our president said we want to be friends to all and enemy to none on the international diplomatic milieu. Zimbabwe wants to be friend to all and enemy to none. Right where you are sitting, last month, we met the American embassy delegation here, the head of the mission. She came here. I think I told you about it. They have said that they are moving to a new leaf with Zimbabwe. Whoever wins the elections, as long as they are free of violence and free and fair, they are ready to recognize the outcome. This is a wholesale migration and a welcome one from the past, where they were saying elections in Zimbabwe are not elections until a favored party wins. Now America has moved to say they want to be fair to the electoral choices of the Zimbabwe people. We know their democratic tradition. Our own independence struggle owes a lot to 1779 when America fought against the same imperial power, Britain, for independence. So we feel that there's much more between an affinity between our democratic aspirations and the American democratic traditions. Yes, there are words about the route you follow to democracy. It's never perfect, it's never linear, it's never uncontested progress. It may have its blemishes along the way. They had a civil war, the exclusion of the blacks, the former slaves from the electoral vote, which made the civil rights movement. They were unfair to women as voters, you know, when the American Constitution was made. But they've come back a long way towards improving their democracy. We are young. We are only 40-something years old. They're a little bit older, 300-something years. So we don't try to hit our chest about the perfection of our democratic credentials. But what we can proudly say, in which our president has always been happy to espouse, is that we value our democratic credentials and we will strive in our own Zimbabwean way, in our own national way, to make sure that we meet the criteria. That's why there is a readiness to open observers. The EU ambassador was saying that observers will be coming, and they will be coming from all and sundry to come and see our elections. We have nothing to hide. We want to show that as a party which fought a revolution and deliberately decided to avoid bullet to office in favor of ballot to office in 1980. We think that our communion with the voters is more important as anything. We never take it for granted as ZANU-PF that we have a right to rule. That's why we assiduously spend our time with the population to make sure that we get their vote. We earn their vote come elections. So these are the processes which we are doing. I'm saying this because there's another aspect in our diplomatic relations which has arisen with America. Just yesterday, the new ambassador to Zimbabwe, a lady, was having a congressional briefings for the approval of a job. I am not going to, because this information is in the public domain, but more important, she still has to come and give her credentials to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and eventually to surrender them and then be taken to the President for credentials. We don't expect any issues in that process because we value our relationship with America. But there is some issues, there are some matters which rose out of senatorial or the congressional briefings in America, which we feel we need to answer immediately to put the record straight. Our president values investment from any quarter in the world, regardless of the color of money, regardless of the creed of money, regardless of the religion of money, regardless of the geographical location of where the money is coming from. Many countries are making progress now. Capital is growing and becoming flat, unlike in the 20th century when only Western Europe had excess capital. Now capital is found everywhere. If you find it in Paris, you can find it in Sao Paulo. If you can find it in Frankfurt, you can find it in Shanghai. If you can find it in London, you can find it in Mumbai. If you can find it in New York, you can also find it in Singapore. All these countries. If you can find it in Toronto, you can also find it in Istanbul. If you can find it, you can find it in Texas. You probably will find capital in Riyadh. There are huge sovereign wealth funds from the oil-producing countries. So for us, capital has no color. There was an attempt to redline capital from another country, and big country, the second largest economy in the world, in the American congressional briefings. There were imputations as if investors from China get favors from the Zimbabwe government in order to invest, in which case we are seen to be tilting the investment table in favor of China as the second largest economy in the world and a historical friend. I want to put it on record that is as far from truth as can be. We treat investment equally from whichever quarter it comes from. Most of the Chinese investments which have happened in the last 12 to 18 months have been driven by private sector Chinese companies. And guess where they were buying the assets on which they were investing them? They were not buying them from the Zimbabwe government. Most of these assets are owned by Zimbabweans, and because of historical advantage, mostly white Zimbabweans, they had claims on minerals which they have held for a long time because they were the first ones to enjoy title courtesy of the conquest from the 1890s. So they were holding on to this title, and some of them, they took their title to the Australian Stock Exchange, where they actually trade those assets on the Australian Stock Exchange. And the Chinese who are investing in Zimbabwe, they are buying these assets not from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, not from the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, but from the Australian Stock Exchange. This exchange is available to American investors. They are also fellow Anglo-Saxons like them. If they had wanted to be in the lithium sector ahead of the Chinese, they could have gone to the Australian Stock Exchange and bid for those assets. But they didn't bid. So, no, this is a free market economy. And there is a free market in the mineral assets of Zimbabwe. And some of these assets are actually on publicly traded stock exchanges of the world, including ASX, including Toronto. These are the major mining stock exchanges. American investors are free to go and bid for those assets when they are on offer at any particular time. If they don't go and invest, then another set of investors from other countries come in and they pay their money. America should not have anybody to blame except themselves. And in this instance, we want to highlight that because America has always been shouting against Zimbabwe, because Americans have been imposed Zidera, because Americans have been preoccupied with trying to change the political system in Zimbabwe, they have been shortchanging their businessmen about the prospects which Zimbabwe can offer. We are a mineral-rich country, where in 7 to 10 minerals we are one of the top in the whole world. That should have been open to American businessmen if their government had a positive attitude to Zimbabwe. But unfortunately, because they are ham-fisted diplomats on Zimbabwe, they then tied the hands of their investors from participating in this bonanza of lithium, which Zimbabwe is. So if the blame is to be laid anyway, it can't be laid on the enthusiasm of Chinese investors who see opportunity when they open their eyes. It must be blamed on the American government for having discouraged a positive view about Zimbabwe concerning its politics, concerning its economic prospects, concerning the capabilities of the Zimbabwe people. So, in short, American government lifted a big business stone. They thought they would drop it on the Zimbabwean government, on Zimbabwe, but they dropped it on their businessmen's feet. And they are now having to play catch up. But that as it may, our country is rich, the minerals are still there, they can still come, and they can outbid, and we know them, they are very good at their business, American business people. They can set up factory here, they can set up smelters, they can build power stations here, and they can prosper with the Zimbabwe people. So we do welcome this sea change on the part of America, but please, they should not raise issues about other investors who saw the light earlier than them to come to Zimbabwe. There was a time when America was very active in Zimbabwe. I'm a business historian. Do you know why the Kariba Dam was built? It was built because America wanted to smelt ferrochrome in Gweru and Kwekwe. We had Union Carbide, a big American company, doing ferrochrome because America wanted ferrochrome for its steel industry because they were building the American Navy during their quarrel with the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. At that time, America had a head start. The Chinese were not even in the game in the 1950s, but America had a head start. Then America decided that they were no longer interested in Zimbabwe. All those ferrochrome plants closed down. Even our Zisco closed down. But now, we see the Chinese come into the ferrochrome industry. Why? Because there is a big demand for steel at home because they are building their infrastructure. We can't deny Chinese people who want to set up shop here to build ferrochrome furnaces because America feels that the Chinese are bad people. No, we will not take part in judging one superpower against another second power, against West and East, against whoever. No, we will not take. Ours is to only make sure that Zimbabwe gets its share of the global capital, and wherever it comes from, we will accept that global capital because it will lead to the development of the country and it will deliver prosperity to Zimbabwe. So I want to say, as the ambassador packs her bags to come to Zimbabwe, she should come with an open mind. We are ready to give her the conditions under which investment has been going on to date. She will read them for themselves, and Hopefully she will be convinced that there is no favoritism to anybody. Then she can cajole, encourage, beckon American companies to come to Zimbabwe, to come and be part of this new bonanza of riches which President Mnangagwa is delivering. You will remember that when he came to power in 2017, his first visit was not to the United Nations. His first visit was to Davos, to the World Economic Forum. This is the jamboree of the world's richest people. That's where capital is discussed to convince investors. That's where he went. And 5 years, 4 years later, the rewards are there. Some of the biggest billionaires in the world, they are in Zimbabwe. The lithium billionaires. We have 4 or 5 of them competing. We even hear by the grapevine that the biggest, second largest manufacturer of electric cars in the world, and the one who popularized the electric cars, Elon Musk, is a fellow original. He's from South Africa. He's also angling to come into Zimbabwe. And we will give him as much opportunity, more so because he's a fellow Southern African who went and made it abroad in America. We are open to investment to everybody, and if it is coming from the region, we are even happier. So we want to disabuse the American Congress. We want to disabuse the American government, that is, the Zimbabwe government is in any race to favor certain countries over others. No. On the issue of capital investment, on capital prowess coming into Zimbabwe, we are on open deck and very transparent. You bid for the asset, you show where you want to do, what you want to do, you put your money on the ground, it takes risk, it rewards you accordingly. We have since, our president, have since moved away from a preference of police money. You know what is police capital? Capital which is supported by governments to go abroad, like from Export-Import Bank of America, from Export-Import Bank of China, Export-Import Bank of India, or from COFAS from France. That is not what our president is interested in, because the monies which can be put by governments for developing in other countries, they are too little for the capacity of Zimbabwe's resources. We need big money, and the big money comes from the international private investors, from the sovereign wealth funds of this world, from rich companies like Amazon, or for that matter, Facebook. It comes from the petrol exporting countries like Algeria. Just last week, but one, there was an Algerian delegation from the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Algeria. You know, it is the biggest supplier of gas to Europe. Their president has allocated $1 billion to say Algeria must invest in Africa before they used to invest in Europe. This is a good thing. So we expect Algerian capital to be coming in, and we will treat it as any other capital which is looking for risk and reward. That's what we are there for. So I want to emphasize that point, that we have no intention, we have never had an intention to favor any particular race or religion or color or continent or country in terms of investment opportunities. They are open and they are flat. And Americans, they are also open to compete in a free and fair manner, because that will make capital be more efficient, and it will create better products for Zimbabwe, from Zimbabwe to be sold to the discerning global market. It will make sure that competent Zimbabwean labor force, because of its high education, it can deliver goods and services of high quality for the global market when it is competitive capital. That's what we want. We want Zimbabwe to be a very lean, efficient, and capable country. And that does not allow for favoring any particular nation. So America must come here with open eyes, without any biases, and they must not try to lecture us about how they were excluded in the past, because they did exclude themselves. We didn't exclude them. So as the ambassador comes to say, welcome to Zimbabwe, a rich hunting ground for entrepreneurial American business people. We know their business prowess, Americans. It's one of the best in the world. They were missing out in action. Now they can be part of the action in Zimbabwe. And President Mnangagwa will only be too glad to be entertaining them at State House, and he will give them their due as much as he has given to the Chinese, as much as he has given to the Indians, Pepsi, Varun, as much as he's now giving to the Turkish people who are coming. Sorry, they had an earthquake recently, it may have disturbed them, but they are keen to come to Zimbabwe, you know, and as much as the European countries are coming back, we are completely color blind, religion blind, creed blind, race blind. We are completely continent blind. We are completely country blind when it comes to capital in Zimbabwe. So the American Congress should not misdirect itself about Zimbabwe. Let them give their businessmen a fair chance to come to Zimbabwe. This is very, very important. We wanted it to be put on record. We never ever favored any particular country in terms of giving our resources. And as much as possible, those resources are being traded on the open market, not through government officials. It's not the Minister of Mines dishing out favors to Chinese. No, most of these claims are actually on publicly traded stock exchanges where American business people could have gone to buy lithium in Buera, they could have gone to buy lithium in Gwanda, they could have gone and buy lithium in Goromonzi. They were free to have bought those assets. For your own information, I am very much involved in the mining sector. I spent the last 3 years until last year trying to sell, to be part of the team which sells Arcadia lithium in Goromonzi. I visited Turkey, I visited Russia, I visited a number of European cities trying to make them buy into Arcadia lithium. Nobody was interested. And the money which they were offering was peanuts to the people who were holding the asset. Now, Big Bang, a Chinese company comes and pays $300 million. Probably the biggest ever deal ever done in mining as a major acquisition. And my friends at Arcadia Lithium are smiling all the way to the bank. This is an open market transaction. The fact that they happen to be Chinese is neither here or there. And incidentally, I want to remind America that Chinese have also their diaspora. There are some in Malaysia, there are some in Singapore, there are some in Philippines, there are some in Taiwan. All of these are Chinese, and some of them, they are all here. Why do they want to pick a bone to chew with Zimbabwe over their relationship with Beijing? Where they quarrel, we are not there. And what they quarrel for, we don't want to, we are not bothered. We just want our place in the sun. On that good note, I want to say the ambassador is welcome to Zimbabwe, and we are hoping to see more American capital come to Zimbabwe because the opportunities are legion. The Zambezi River has got 8 cataracts of the Indian Ocean. They need to be developed for power. America has got some of the most competent companies in the power sector, GE. Even before that, our government had gone out of the way to award a tender to GE to build Batoka. We are now 4 or 5 years, 6 years since the award was done. There's still not much work done on Batoka. But the Chinese came, they did something on Kariba South. They are now doing something. So the speed of rollout of projects indicates the appetite of the investors. So if the Chinese have a bigger appetite, let it be. But we don't mind if we can rub a little bit of paper to American palates so that their appetite is increased. We will do so that they can catch up with others. I thank you.
Thank you very much, our national spokesperson, for clarifying issues which I think our members of the media would also want to go and tell the Zimbabwean story. Like the ambassador have said, our democracy in ZANU-PF is alive. Everyone is on the ground canvassing for support from the people where we derive our power. We don't do like those that only talks about democracy and yet they are not democratic. The ambassador have also mentioned that we are country and colorblind in terms of investment. We don't prefer other investors over others. We treat them equally and fairly. Thank you very much, spokesperson, once again. I don't know if we have got members who would want to pose some questions. This is the time for those questions.
Well, I've got a still tentative, but probably actual. We are likely to have the PB, Political Bureau of ZANU-PF, the top policy making body, the top policy executing board of the party meet on Monday to endorse the deliberations of the National Elections Directorate, which are winding up right now on the selection of the candidates. Then soon afterwards, the day of the primary elections will be announced. So, you know, people who are campaigning have been given a few more days. We're supposed to have already tomorrow, but we are doing a thorough work. We are going to be fair to all candidates. So we are spending each time, we are combing through each name to make sure that somebody is not unfairly prejudiced. That work is almost complete. It's left to take it to our president and to convene a Politburo, and the date, the candidates will be announced publicly, probably through a press conference like this one. Then a date of the elections will also be announced publicly for people to get themselves for the voting. That does not happen in the other part. But ours, because we are masters of organization, we have a history of organization. We believe that what we talk must have a resonance with the electorate. That's why we are going to all these steps which I've been outlining to you. There's an outcry out there about clamping of cars for motorists coming into Harare. We strongly believe that it is a broke CCC which is trying to extortion the people of Harare to pay for their election campaign. This is a heinous act on the part of CCC to labor, to elbow motorists with fines, hefty fines of $130-something for towing their cars, and then charging another 300. I mean, first for claiming their cars, then another 300. This is money, it's a fortune for the motorist. I mean, after 3 or 4 claims, you would have lost the money which was enough to buy your car. I mean, and then you expect the voters to come and vote for you. But incidentally, do you know where this is coming from? It is coming from mayors who said we've been failing to run Harare for 2 decades because decisions were being made by ZANU-PF. Now, when it comes to criminal extortion of the motorists, suddenly there's the same people who were saying we are indigent, we are impotent. Suddenly now we have power to penalize and extortion the motorists. You can't have your cake and eat it at the same time. It means they had power all along. One, they did not know that the power is for a good purpose, and the good purpose is to serve the electorate by building thoroughly modern cities which would have been examples of the capacity of the CCC, MDC to the whole country and to the world, that Zimbabwe has got a city as clean as Kigali or as clean a city as Singapore. They had a chance to do that in 2 decades, but instead the cities are cesspits of decay in every aspect, no prospects of jobs. Did you hear what a former banker, now permanent secretary of finance, said? You know, all institutions of government, they also go to the market to borrow money. And what they issue are bonds. America issues bonds every day. They look down the street in Washington. They are seeing people coming to buy their bonds. Do you know who they are looking for to come and buy their bonds? The Chinese. They have almost 2 to 3 trillion US dollars of American bonds. Because if they come, the Chinese don't buy the American bonds, nobody else has got the buying power for those bonds. That's the way governments raise their money. So that is the same way our cities and our government also raises money. In the past, when ZANU-PF was in charge of the cities, the bonds of the city of Harare were more valuable, you paid more for them. They were more preferred by investment punters than the bonds of the Zimbabwe government. It means the city was being run better than the government, and people who were buying bonds knew that they would be repaid by the city of Harare because there was efficiency, and the ratepayers were paying willingly for electricity, for roads, for water, for schools, for entertainment grounds, for all the things which make a city a habitable environment. So there was a good deal. The ratepayer was getting his due, and the city fathers were getting their money from the ratepayers. And when they wanted to, they were short of money, they go to the bond market, to the banks, and the banks would eagerly grab or punt for the bonds of the cities of Harare rather than those of the government of Harare. Now, according to the former permanent secretary of finance, who was a banker at Barclays, he says, hey, nobody will even bet an eye on the bonds of the city of Harare. They are dog bonds. Nobody wants them. They run away from them. Because of the incompetence, the lack of vision, the lethargy, and the preoccupation with state house rather than town house, which those elected officials at town house are pursuing. They want every corner stand to be taken for a bribe. They quarrel about people who are selling rents at Mpezanamo. They don't even see a businessman to invest in the town. So if you don't have this prospectus to a businessman or to a financier, which shows that you are capable of handling money properly, don't expect your bonds to be bought. This is a verdict by the investment community. So I do hope that the urban electorate will follow the lead of the investment community, which has been shunning the city of Harare bonds, and equally shun the city fathers who have been making sure that their bonds are not preferred, they are shunned away from, or they are shied away from by investors. So come election time, Harare voters, you have taken your cue, go and see what banks are doing, find out whose bonds they are not buying, and you can see that because the people are not good with money, those people whose bonds are not being bought. And if they are not good with the money, it means they are not good with you as ratepayers. It means they are also not good for you as urban electorate. It's a time we change the urban government. You follow the ZANU-PF way. You follow the route of Emerson Mnangagwa, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Everybody is now wanting to buy Zimbabwe bonds. You can see by the billionaires who are coming for the steel plant. By the way, the steel plant will start producing in the third quarter of this year in Manize. Last week, Prospect Gormonzo connected with ZESA. They've now started producing lithium carbonate, which is a beneficiation product higher than or lithium. And it underscores my earlier argument. The Chinese investors who are coming now to Zimbabwe, they are not taking ore away from Zimbabwe to China. They are processing that ore in Zimbabwe to make made in Zimbabwe world-class products destined for the descending global market. Manize is going to produce world-class steel. Wange Colliery is producing world-class coking coal. The customer is ArcelorMittal, the largest steel company to date in South Africa. These are end products. That's why our dollar is strengthening, because we are exporting more, because of the processing of minerals within Zimbabwe. You all know that Zimplats is building a refinery in Seru. This is again another stage in the beneficiation of platinum. We no longer have to say we depend on assays from South Africa. We will be doing it here at home. An assay is where you measure the approximate mineral in a mat which has been smelted before you put it in a refinery. Now we will be doing it here home, and it will be real. This is the beneficiation route which the president is following. It requires investment, and Americans are free to come in and make investment in those fields so that they prove that they are good business people like Chinese or like Indians or like Turkish. So it underscored my point. We are not trucking minerals to China. We are, as much as possible, allowing them to come and put furnaces here, blast furnaces for iron, furnaces for chrome, and furnaces for leaching plants for lithium, and further refinement for lithium until it gets to battery grade lithium used for the manufacture of batteries for the new electric vehicles. In short, we are raising the value of our minerals to a notch 10 to 20 times higher than raw exports of minerals. Americans are free to come and participate in that instead of being jealousy of other people who simply take advantage of an environment of open competitive bidding for good quality assets which God incidentally was so generous as to give to Zimbabwe, particularly in the mining sector. I thank you.